Genetic engineering has always raised concerns about its potential for causing harm in the realm of biosafety. It has also raised concerns over the potential for dishonesty about these risks due to conflicts of interest. Additionally, there is concern that the scientists involved might encounter hazards that were not anticipated. In reality, there is now a 40-year track record for genetic engineering without a single incident. However, this was not immediately apparent at the onset of the field. This video is a series of clips from a Cambridge City Council hearing on recombinant DNA research from 1976. To put this in context, it was only 3 years earlier that Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen demonstrated that you could clone a gene into a plasmid using restriction enzymes. At the time of this meeting, the ability to deliberately change the genetic blueprint of the cell was brand new technology. Accordingly, there was no track record to point to as a starting point for conversations around risk. Understandably, the debate was heated. Ultimately, the City Council meeting resulted in a 6-month moratorium on the use of recombinant DNA technology and was a key event in establishing standards for oversight, risk analysis, and risk mitigation. Up first is City Councilwoman Sandra Graham. She expresses concern over the entire context of such a meeting. She posits that since politicians are being asked to settle it, there must be some great internal debate amongst the scientific community. As the meeting progresses, indeed there are scientists on both sides of the aisle in a way that is less pronounced today. However, there is some intrinsic truth to her statement. If we had clear and consistent theory about how risk emerges in genetic engineering, there would be no need for a public debate about what these risks were. As of 2014, we have great experience with this technology, but there is still no overarching theory.
I'm still wondering why this has been dropped in our laps. There must be a great division that now the political world, us who are known to make crazy decisions, now has to settle an issue in the scientific world. There must be something terribly wrong going on, that nobody knows what kind of guidelines should be adhered to, and that we are going to have to make that judgment on the basis of, excuse my language, national security. I hate using that word. But, I mean, see, I cannot, wait a minute, just let me say something, because we are not scientists. And my God, in my almost 5 years of being on the council, I never thought I would have to make a scientific political decision. There are all kinds of things the city can do not to build that facility. I don't understand why it is being placed in our laps if the risk is so low, or there is almost zero chance of anything happening to the public, that we have to make that decision. And that makes me leery of what kind of experiment this is really all about. Because even in the nuclear experiments, they never came to the City Council for us to make those decisions. And that's all I have to say. I think this is more dramatic than I ever expected it to be.
David Clem raises concerns about an intrinsic conflict of interest for the NIH to both fund research using recombinant DNA and to provide the regulatory oversight for the technology. Such conflicts still exist today. Though the track record of NIH oversight is impeccable, it has a limited scope. It only deals with concerns over human, animal, and to some degree plant health. It does not include risks to the environment, to commerce, or general well-being.
Does the NIH fund recombinant DNA research? Asked Clem. The answer, yes. And is it also the NIH that regulates that research? Again, yes. Clem startled everybody with his next question.
Dr. Singer, do you believe personally that there should be civilian control over the military?
That's a very difficult question for me to answer personally, since I have come as an employee of the National Institutes of Health. And it's a question which obviously is surprising to me because it's something unexpected and not right on the topic.
Well, you see, I think it is on the topic because I think that is, in fact, the fundamental issue here. I really don't give a damn about a P3 laboratory at Harvard University because I can't visit that laboratory and discover if it's P1, P2, or P4, or whatever. I don't have the expertise to analyze or investigate any type of laboratory facility at Harvard University. But it strikes me as very to the point that there is an important principle in this country that the people who have a vested self-interest in certain types of activity shouldn't be the ones who are charged with not only promulgating it, but regulating it. This country missed the boat with nuclear research and the Atomic Energy Commission. And we're going to find ourselves in one hell of a bind because we are allowing one agency with a vested interest to initiate, fund, and encourage research, and yet we are assuming that they are non-biased and have the ability to regulate that, and more importantly, to enforce their regulations.
The next speaker proposes a moratorium on recombinant DNA technology. Indeed, this is the result of the meeting. There was such a moratorium for 6 months before research resumed.
For your information, I am placing a resolution in the hands of the city clerk. I'll read it so everybody can think about it. Whereas there is still considerable doubt concerning the safety of experimentation dealing with recombinant DNA, therefore be it resolved that the Cambridge City Council insists that no experimentation involving recombinant DNA should be done within the city of Cambridge for at least 2 years. And be it further resolved that the Cambridge City Council do anything and everything within its power to enforce this resolution. And this will come up on July 7 of 1976, and I'm placing it in the hands of the city clerk.
Our final clip is from Ruth Hubbard. She is one of a minority of voices with expertise in microbiology, raising concerns specifically about the use of E. coli. Because coli is a human commensal, there is the risk of infection of the researchers and potential spread to others. The last 40 years of genetic engineering has focused mostly only overexpressing a single gene in highly degenerated strains of E. coli, and the ability of these organisms to act even as commensals is greatly compromised. However, as the field begins tackling more sophisticated applications such as live therapeutics, including engineered probiotics and vaccines, this potential for infection and spread will need to be reconsidered.
Proposed that these experiments be done in containment facilities, so-called, but everyone agrees that such facilities cannot in fact contain E. coli, that is, keep it in, because it will inevitably be carried out by the people who work with it, on their clothes, in their hair, on their skin, in their throats, and it will be communicated by them to other people. It is quite possible that these people themselves will not get sick from these E. coli they carry, but that when they come in contact with people who are more susceptible, like, for example, people who have just taken a course of penicillin that kills all the bacteria in their gut, and who are therefore just in process of developing a new culture of bacteria, that they may take up large numbers of these new strains and may get sick. Another example, newborn infants have no bacteria in their guts and gradually acquire them. Should people doing this kind of work be allowed to come in contact with newborns? Should they be isolated from them? There are a whole host of questions that could be answered by working on animals, and that we do not know the answers to at this time. The point is that we don't know, and the people who want to go ahead with the work don't know, because this kind of work has not been done before. The best course, therefore, is to be extremely cautious until we know more, and particularly with coli. Because if a dangerous strain of coli gets going, since it can live in us and in so many other places and can multiply rapidly, it can get all over the place before we even know that it is out, and after that, we cannot call it back.
In the realm of hypothetical risks, there are some underlying assumptions about what is possible which are probably inaccurate. For example, it is somehow chemically obvious that a GFP overexpressing E. coli could never become a dangerous object. But why? The mechanistic basis for ruling out all potential for risk in such organisms has not been established. As our field progresses towards a more knowledge-based and disciplined approach to design, these considerations of risk mechanisms will need to be fleshed out and considered up front before fabrication.